It's me, Antti Alajuma, back with the Project ARMO again. We're getting real close to having a complete driving car. I still have one technical issue that I need to take care of. Some of you may remember that I have a E23 hydraulic brake booster in the car, and I still have a problem with that. In the system there's this pressure regulator. It has a pressure accumulator for the brakes, and it uses the power steering pump for the pressure. The accumulator, or brake pump as it's also called, holds pressure for something like 5 full-on brakes. When the pressure drops, the system will switch the flow from power steering to charge up the pump, and then switch the flow back to power steering. But mine doesn't do that. So when the pressure drops, it starts charging the pump, but it never stops. The pump is running against the wall when the pressure reaches the upper limit. On this table I hope to have everything to fix the issue. First possible thing is that I have the brake pump mounted this way, with the accumulator above the regulator. BMW actually has it always this way, with the brake pump at the bottom. So I have this is the old bracket that I had for the pump. This is a new one that I made. Then I have new hoses, and of course these connectors here. But I'm not putting my money on this, because actually I suspect that because the markings are this way, this is the intended mounting orientation. Another possible reason that my brother pointed out is that the E23 has a power steering pump with a pressure output of 130 bars. On my car, the steering rack and the power steering pump come from an E36, and the pump has an output of 110 bars. It may be that it's just so much lower pressure that the pressure limits in the regulator don't work as they are supposed to. So what I have here is a rebuilt power steering pump from an E34 M50 engine. I think it should be the correct shape to fit the M52, and it has a pressure output of 130 bars. I'll do both things, flip the pressure regulator and change the power steering pump, and then we'll see if the problem is solved. There she is. Not too much space, but just enough. Let's see how the fix went. A little bit of clanking from the gearbox, but no noise from the power steering pump, even when I pressed the brake. So it was a success. Of course it would be too easy if all the problems were solved. Now that I have the instrument cluster all wired up, and I've been able to drive the car for a little bit, it turned out that I have an ABS fault in the system. There's a neat little trick for pinpointing which sensor is bad in E30 ABS. When you disconnect all the ABS sensors except one and start driving, if that one sensor is faulty and does not give any signal, then the ABS light will not turn on because all the 4 sensors are essentially giving zero speed. But if that one sensor that's plugged in is operates correctly, it will when you start driving, it will light up the ABS fault light, because one sensor is reading normal signal and all the others are reading 0 speed because they are unplugged. So I came to the conclusion that I have some sort of problem on both front sensors. I need to check the sensor position and check that I have a correct distance between the sensor and the ABS ring. But actually, in 1 week, there's this big E30 meet in Finland, and I need to have this car up and running. So just to be sure, I ordered new front sensors for both sides. First step, jack up your car. I know I'm not supposed to use a floor jack on gravel, but that's why I have these boards. Sorry about the wind, by the way. Hope you can hear. Next item on the list of things I'm doing wrong, using non-impact rated tools with an impact gun, or mostly the socket, because an impact socket doesn't fit these modified wheels. But I'm doing the safety squint. Just like the welders welding without the mask. These are some old ABS sensors that came with the ABS kit when I purchased it. So whether or not they are fully functional is a mystery. But apparently not. The left one and right one are different, and this appears to be a left one. We can compare it with the new one. Actually, no. This is. I think I have the sensors wrong, because this one is supposed to be the left one, but it's different-handed from the one I have here. So this one is might be okay, but because I have new sensors, I'm going to install them anyways. Previously I've used mostly copper paste, but I've moved on to these ceramic pastes, because I'm afraid the copper paste may give a bit of electrochemical corrosion with steel. Well, it appears now I have some spare sensors. It was kind of embarrassing that the only problem was that the sensors were on the wrong sides, but also it was a nice and simple, easy fix. In Finland, cars need to be inspected for road use yearly, and for apparent reason this car is 8 years late from a yearly inspection. Also, when you make major changes like engine swaps and such, you need to have the changes inspected and approved. I cannot legally drive the car on the roads, but I can get this temporary driving permit to be able to drive the car to dyno and such. I need to have the car dynoed to prove the engine power figure for the inspector. Today we'll be heading out for the dyno. This morning I went to have the car wheel aligned, and it was okay otherwise. On the left rear tire there's a little bit too much towing, so it seems that the left trailing arm is maybe a little bit out of shape. You may hear a little chattering on the background. It comes from the e-brake cable, and I'm not quite sure what's the reason for the problem. It's coming from the right rear tire, and I had a look at the e-brake, and everything looks okay. And it doesn't look like anything is rubbing on the e-brake cable either. But for some reason there's this vibration which is quite annoying. The guy that runs the dyno in my hometown is away working. So now I'm driving for a different dyno about 100 kilometers from where I live. It's not bad. I get to have a little bit of long distance travel experience on the car. The engine is stroked into 3 liters, and it has similar cams as S52 B32 US engine. So I think the power should be in the range of 220 to 240 engine horsepower. Well, that didn't go too well. There are 2 major problems here. One is that the torque curve looks quite good, but it's showing around 200 Newton meters, and from 3-liter engine I should be having around 300 Newton meters. And the second thing is that the revs are scary high. And dyno guy, he was planning to do the dyno pull until rev limiter. He didn't seem to counter a rev limiter, so he stopped it at a bit less than 8,000 RPM. But what I found later is that in the instrument cluster I still had the code plug for the 4-cylinder engine, even though I had double checked it, but still I have somehow managed to look at the numbers wrong. This dyno graph is kinda useless, because when you calculate it, the torque is actually around 300 Newton meters. But if you calculate the correct revs, the pull only lasted until about 5,100 RPM. So you can only guesstimate of the real figures for the engine. M52B28, if it has cams and such, usually the torque stays quite even until 6,000 RPM. So that would mean that if the torque stays the same, the power will continue growing linearly, and that would mean something like 250 horsepower. But I don't know how this difference affects the way that the dyno calculates for the gear train loss. This dyno graph is fine for inspection, but it doesn't give me much else information. One nice thing that came out from all this is that earlier I had problems getting the car to idle below 1000 RPM, but in reality I was trying to get the car to idle around 600 RPM, and it wasn't too happy about that. So the idle was not very even. But now it's nice and even idle at 850 RPM. Car is so much easier and nicer to drive with a functioning idle control valve.